We start today with a Bible reading taken from John chapter 13. Jesus washes his disciples' feet. It was just before the Passover festival. Jesus knew that the hour had come for him to leave this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. The evening meal was in progress, and the devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus replied, "You do not realize now what I am doing, but later you will understand." "No," said Peter, "you shall never wash my feet." Jesus answered, "Unless I wash you, you have no part with me." The dusty roads in Palestine led to dirty and dusty feet. Open-toed sandals were the common footwear, and sometimes feet were caked in mud and grime. When people arrived, it was customary to provide water to wash them with, and in better-off homes, you would be provided with a servant to do it for you. Historians tell us that such tasks weren't allocated to Jewish male servants, but given to women, children, or Gentiles, non-Jews. On special occasions, foot washing was a sign of great love and respect for a superior, so a disciple might occasionally wash the feet of his rabbi, for example. But here, hours before his crucifixion, Jesus, their leader, their rabbi for the last 3 years, the Son of God, knelt as a servant and washed his disciples' feet. For Jesus, it wasn't good enough to talk about feeding the hungry. He took a boy's packed lunch of bread and fish and fed an enormous crowd. Jesus didn't just talk about forgiveness, but embraced those whose lives were broken and messed up. Jesus didn't just talk about caring, humility, and service, but he washed his disciples' feet. He didn't just talk about love, but hung on a cross to demonstrate the breadth of it. But before we rush headlong into service, which many of us are very good at, the steps of service actually start by allowing Jesus to wash our feet, to serve us, to love us, to cleanse us, to befriend us. One of the hardest things to do is to admit our need and to allow the servant-like love of Jesus to reach us, to transform us, and to melt our hearts. Only when we have been washed and loved and served can we love and serve others. Our example is Jesus. I want to read an extract from Tony Campolo's book entitled "Let Me Tell You a Story." And this section is called God's Fragrance. The author Rita Snowdon tells of her visit to a small town near Dover in England. She was having tea in the late afternoon when she became very aware of an unbelievable, pleasant scent filling the air. She asked the waiter the source of the scent and was told that it came from the people passing by. He explained to her that they worked in a perfume factory down the street and were on their way home. When they left the factory, they carried with them the fragrance that had permeated their clothes during the day's work. Rita Snowdon immediately saw this as an illustration of what the church could be like at its best. We should be a people who allow ourselves in worship to be permeated with the love of Christ and the sweetness of his presence. Then as we go forth into the world, the fragrance of the Lord goes with us, and all the people we pass experience something of God's fragrance through us. I love that image, being so permeated with the love of Christ, the example of Christ, the sweetness of his presence, that this just flows naturally from us. This week, may the fragrance of Christ overwhelm you. May his example inspire you, and may his grace strengthen you in your response. And as a closing prayer, I read to you a poem by Denise Bryan. To celebrate a meal with friends, to share a love that never ends. You took your men and broke the bread. Aware of all that lay ahead, you took the cup and gave the wine the covenant to underline. And knowing what you had to taste, you tied a towel around your waist and washed the feet of each man there, and hoped that they'd become aware and understand, do the same to serve your people in your name. Although I was not there to see, I'd like you to remember me. I want to share communion too and make a covenant with you. I want to be completely clean and know my actions will be seen as service, given willingly, inspired by your humility. Amen.